Just threw a nice wet line of primer right down that body line. It's going to get sanded onto the floor, but it's a good way to see. It dries so fast, I don't know how much of that I caught on the camera, but we want that body line as smooth as we can go, and I think we're happy. Let's see how that is. Wipe it off up here a little bit. That looks crooked because how my hands took it off there. That's better. Looks like this one right here starts to jot in, which is right at the corner of the window. The corner of the window is about here. About right here. The primer makes it look like it's in a different spot, but then I move and I can see that the line is pretty close to where it needs to be. Close enough that the high build primer will do it. But yeah, it's just a good trick. I had this all in filler and boarded this way, boarded that way, and then what I did is I just kind of ever so made this not sharp. I didn't take it all the way down. I'd like to leave it a little bit sharp because I find, there's a little bit of round on this, but it's pretty sharp. The fenders are pretty sharp. This was all rippled and dented in, so we had to fill this out actually and block it. I still got to put some fill in some of the low spots, but I got the shape where we need it to be because it was totally out of shape. Now my line, I kind of just followed what they had done to the door. Now the door is a skin, which apparently was quite expensive, but I mean it's about as, the body line is as sharp as the body line on the fender. So I kind of want to leave mine like this, and here you can see where it tapers off a little bit rounder, so that it matches with the taillight bucket. But these quarters weren't full quarters. They were quarters up to here. 80%, whatever they call them. But I mean, they're meant to be cut up and used as patch panels. So because of that, they're not always perfect. And in this case, that line down there didn't really match the door, so we had to do some work there. But the gap was nice halfway down and then slowly got tighter to the door. Now mind you, he could have pulled that back, cut and spliced, and they just pulled it in as tight as they could, and who knows what they did. I don't even know if the fender is on exactly where it should be because of that. But we cut here, moved it back, but I also cut in behind the door to let it come out to the door before we filled it up, and then welded it back shut. We had to do similar things back here. I think I have that in other videos, maybe not. This all had to be created out of steel because what happened, you put the taillight bucket, they did the fender before pulling some damage that was done down here. So when we pulled that out, the bucket fit really well. I put a level on the bucket with some little pins from one side to the other, and what had happened, it would touch all the way around, fit fairly well, and down here, big gap that went to nothing. So I actually put a piece of steel right here on edge, welded it up both sides, ground it smooth, filed it till everything fit tight. And I made sure to put a nice fat edge on it so that it has something to sit against. Now down here we're going to be out just a touch, but I don't want to add any more curve there than I have to, because it's a little bit on the heavy side, I believe, compared to this side. Mind you, this side just sort of, but I think it is what it is. Now this side, the fender was way in. Of course, there was damage here, so who knows why. So what I had to do here is slice back here, let it out, massage it until the bucket fit, weld this, and then I also filled this just with weld and kept bringing it out and then file it off. So this one fits like a glove beautifully. What I did notice, and why I was talking about the sharpness on that side, see how here it's round and it matches the bucket real nice. It gets a little bit sharp here, and then it's not real sharp anywhere. It's kind of a subtle round, except right here. Now here I still gotta round it off a little bit. That's just because I blocked it off the door. But I mean, if we want to keep the sharpness of the door, you can see how we're going to take very little off that. So this might be a touch sharper, and then here where it starts to transition out, maybe I'll go to nothing. Might have to go look at the customer's other car. He's got a beautifully done GTX. I might go look at that to see what they did on that. But to me, this is sharp. This is, wow, this actually peaks, right? It comes up. You can see that. So it kind of comes up and peaks. So it's, I mean, it's not super square, but, you know, it's slightly tapered. You can kind of see, you know, it comes up like a sharp peak. And as I'm walking down the car now, even looking at it, it's like I find right here, there's no peak. So, I'm not sure yet. I think we can round that off a bit and go with it. But after a sleepless night or two, I'll probably re-rough this whole edge all the way down, which is untouched metal. That's just how the, again, 80% quarter. So it came up to here. It's welded right across the top like this. Before I got the car, because I would have done, you know, full quarters. Because by the time you do all this work and put all this money in, the AMD quarters are supposed to be really, 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 really close to what the factory was. So I have a feeling that peak would have been pretty much like this door. This is an original door, not with the skin at all. And I mean, it's got a sharp peak, and then the edge is rounded over, and that's all you want. And again, I'm probably getting way too picky. But at the end of the day, you want the car to look good. And it is just a driver. I'm just getting way too picky. But it just seems to me that I can keep a nice sharp edge on this side. I gotta watch where I put the camera. You can kind of find wobbles by moving it around just because of how it's shaded. But when it's wet, the line was nice and straight. So anyway, this is what I use for a lot of stuff when I'm not using, you know, the gun. And in this case, I'm just going to sand this off after I fill up those. It's all going to end up on the floor. This was all wavy. I think I did the other side at some point a while back. So this side was the same. I got fingerprints all over it already. It isn't finished. You can see little bit of air bubble pockets in there. Down here there was some lead. We buried that. I would have taken it all out, but he took most of it out, he claimed, and said not to worry about it. And I was surprised. There was like some bumpy funniness down here where I don't know if he missed a spot or whatever, but we epoxied it and it was like a dent. Well, that's all fiberglassed from here. When I say fiberglass, I mean the fiberglass or the fiber-filled filler. So that transition here isn't just filler, it's actually completely glass, and it's blocked and it is smooth, other than, like I say, a few imperfections here and there. Let's see right here. Here, let me see. Put my finger on it. There we go. Sand scratches. But it's smooth, smooth, smooth. Like, you want rough cut, rough paper. In this case, we're using 40, the Blue Fire. It's really sharp. It's meant for these. To get this curve in here, I use one of these, and it is a Durablock. This is what I was doing. coming up in here, cutting it all down. Then I did the same thing with 120. Places where I wanted it flat, old school block, same paper. You know, sometimes on your machine the end rips, and so there's always lots of that kicking around. But we will put like a super, super thin coat on there of real smooth filler and sand that one more time, in which case I'll probably use the same stuff to block it. Not with 40 and, well, this was 40 and 80, but we'll do probably like 180, 320, I don't know, whatever I grab off the cart. But anyway, check your lines. I think they're important. This one is going to be nice. Got some little hollows here and there we're going to have to fill. Block it again. But we'll stay away from the line because the line looks flat, but right at the top, right about here, it actually kind of starts to round and feather. So, you know, and we want to keep the shape of the car. And I noticed on the front fender, it's actually not perfectly round above that body line. It's kind of flat, and then it rounds out near the top. Now it's a little wider at the front, so there's a little more round, but I think this is about where we should be. And everything transitions real nice, and that's the idea, right? Once you get a nice transition, this is why, like I say, on the other side of the car, I might actually rough that up and, you know, fill out a peak. But you're kind of adding fill that you don't need then, right? So you got to kind of decide. The other thing I could do is round this off to mat. Now, you don't see both sides, so, I mean, this has to be rounded off a little bit anyway. I don't know. I'll ask the owner. He comes to visit a lot. He's a friend, so I'll say, look, what do you feel about this? And we'll do whatever he wants. At the end of the day, I can only put so much time into something because I've got a lot booked up. But, I mean, this is all blocked and smooth. Wherever you see metal, that's basically where you stop. If you remember in the last videos, there was marks, dents, roll marks. This was all beat up from like a roller or something at the factory. But again, when you buy these 80% quarters, depending who they're from, I had a set of made in Taiwan Keystone rotors, which was like a new old stock on a 68 Camaro Firebird. They were nice. They were really, really nice, actually. But I've had some where they don't even really fit on the car, but they're an 80% panel that's meant to be modified and whatever. You cut out whatever you need, right? So as long as they're close, you can cut a chunk out. You're going to have to make it fit. But these guys were not real awesome, and they were installed as they were. So I had to cut and relieve places and fix door gaps, which is a lot of reason why all the taillight buckets didn't work. They just went with, you know, however the 80% fenders were finished off. So nothing really matched. And again, this is welded across somewhere in here across the top. I think it's about an inch, inch and a half, inch and a quarter, somewhere in there. But yeah, so when you buy those quarters, keep in mind they're not awesome, so you got to do a little more work. Now, before he welded this all on, he could have played with it as he was welding it and made it a little better, or dollied it out, or whatever you have to do. But you almost got to put the trunk lid on, make sure it's where you want it to be, put the bucket in, on, off. Mock-up, right? Takes forever. It sucks. But because he didn't do it then, I had to do it before. Like, this was all body work was done in the rough. Well, the finished body work, I had to cut into it and correct a lot of things, which, you know, and the owner knew this because this was like took him a long time to save this car. The whole underside of the car is new and it's pretty good. Everything lines up. It went through an alignment. The car's good. So that's it for today. Just wanted to show you not to be afraid. Sometimes grab a spray bomb. You can't quite see the dents. It feels smooth, looks smooth. You block it out, but you're not sure. And especially a body line like this on a car like this body line is like super duper important. So I basically just put 3-4 coats of that on fairly quick, but the last coat I went a little slow and a little wet. This way I could come back here and, you know, I had a couple minutes where I could look down it and see that body line perfectly wet. I may do that on this as well, because you never know. I think these were actually really nice, but, you know, I don't want to find out that there's a little wobble or, you know, a little wave in it after the car's painted. But yeah, it's going to be a nice car. We had to take the skin off the door and put it back on and set it back on the inner door so that we had adjustment and things would work and fit. The windows fit. They didn't before. I still got to take this out and weld that. And the front edge has to be welded, but the back's already done. The bottom is almost pinched. I got to do a little bit of work. But we'll take this fender off to do that. I'm kind of doing it on the car because I'm trying to make sure everything fits, nothing goes out of line. That's been sanded and blocked together, so that surface will be bang on. You can technically, after a car's painted then, is you can loosen your striker or whatever in there and just let the door out just a touch. And what that does is it keeps stuff from eating the edge. Really important on vehicles that you're driving on the road. On this car, which will be going to car shows and stuff, not so much. The other thing you can also do, because it's really, really, really close, when I put the primer on and I'm blocking the primer and I block across it, I can open the door, just kind of feather it in a wee bit, which is probably what I'll do on this car, and keep that adjustment where it is because I want all that flush. Anyway, that's it for today. That's what we've been doing on the Sports Satellite. 1969. Real nice car. Cheers.